We've been part of the church here in Essex since we planted nearly 23 years ago now, and got caught up in the New Frontiers movement of churches, the family of churches, which the family which we belong to is Relational Mission. New Frontiers is quite a strong church planting movement, and so we've been looking to plant churches over the years, and by God's grace, here in our little part of Essex, we now have 4 churches, and we've been blessed with growth, and it's been very exciting. But when looking back and looking back over that growth, there has been some salvation growth and people that have come to know Jesus have been added to the church. But I would say the majority of growth is, transfer growth from people moving into the area from Africa or Eastern Europe that are Christians looking for a church, have come to us, and that's the growth that we've seen, which the steady growth through people coming into the area, and so, which is lovely, and God is great, and we've got a wonderful, beautiful, diverse church. Nearly 40 different nations worshipping together every Sunday, and we've got a heart to reach our communities. The name of the church is Community Church, and so we've been praying and working to reach our communities over those 20 odd years to some degree of fruitfulness, where most years we would maybe see 15 people saved and added to our congregations, and which is exciting, mainly through Alpha, which is the tool that we use, but through friendship evangelism, and different ways that people have found us and come and explored what it means to follow Jesus. And then my friend Russell, a few years ago, decided that he was going to, he led a church in the other end of the borough here, and he decided he was going to step down from leadership to pursue this No Place Left vision. And I didn't understand it. I didn't really know what it was about. But he invited me, actually, Steve, to training where you were the lead trainer, and Russell was assisting over in Stamford there. And I came along, just wanted to check it out, really. What is it that Russell himself into? Is it any good? And I think I gave you a bit of a hard time over Luke 10 and some of that stuff there when I was looking through it. A bit sceptical. Yeah. Way thinking there's something here that we're missing, because although we were strong on trying to plant churches, we weren't strong on witnessing and making disciples. And so I mulled it over and then said to Russell, when you do some more training, I'd like to come. So I went on the next lot of training. I can't remember where it was. And then the third lot I went to, I think was in up north somewhere, along with Russell, just carried his bag sort of thing, said, I just want to come listen. So I listened to the training 3 times, the 411 training that he does. And by that time, I was completely sold out to it. I think this is great. This is amazing. Part of the training means you're out on the streets. I used to do that back in my teenage years. I used to belong to the Salvation Army, and they're known to be on the streets. I've preached in the streets. I've gone door to door, and then be back out on the streets with this wonderful tool of sharing the gospel. This is great. And so I was convinced. Work is part of an eldership team, so I'm not the pastor. We work as team, and so my next step then was, number 1, to put it into practice myself, start to share the gospel myself, and number 2 is try to engage the rest of the eldership team and to catch them up to where I was, and to persuade this is something that we could adopt as a church. That took a little while. Bear in mind, I've been on a journey myself. Yeah. It took a little while for the other elders to catch up, and but they did, and the end of the story after quite a journey is that we've agreed as an eldership team that we have adopted this as our main form of training people to share the gospel. This is what we're going to be using. We've adopted the 3/3 discipleship pattern and the Discovery Bible Study. We've adopted the commands of Christ to disciple new Christians. And we said this is the process that we're going to be using and teaching. It's easy to reproduce. It's very powerful. It's very biblical. And so as a church, we decided this is what we're going to be using. And so we started on a journey.
I'm just wondering, because you're experiencing the training, you're also rolling up your sleeves and you're implementing. So can you think of a story back at that time of how God used you personally in
I think one of the things, especially when you're trying to bring something to a brand new tool or method to a existing church, is that the leaders have got to immerse themselves in it so they can teach from experience, not just from theory. And so I was determined that I was going to share the faith. Bear in mind, I've been in leadership in the church for nearly 23 years. It's embarrassing to say that I wasn't sharing my faith in that way. I think I used to hide behind the fact that I was a church leader, that I work for the church. I'm in a church office. My family are Christians. I don't have opportunities to share my faith. That's what I used to hide behind. But I was determined, if I'm going to do this, I've got to be sharing my faith. So I just kept practicing with Russell mainly and out on the streets. And I think it was maybe even the beginning of this year when things started to change. So it took a time, and I was preaching down in Kent, in a church in Kent, and just sharing with them about why we should be sharing the gospel, the first part of the 411. And I did that as a preach. And I didn't get to training them about how to share the gospel or anything like that. But after the church service, I sat down in their coffee shop. It's a beautiful coffee shop. And I sat next to a young lady, and I introduced myself and said, hi, my name's David. I've just been preaching. How long have you been coming to the church? And she said, this is my first time today. I said, okay. And normally I would have just chatted away and just talked about the church. But on this occasion I said, so where are you in your faith? Are you following Jesus? And of course she said, no, I'm just exploring, which led to me going straight into sharing the gospel with her using the 3 circles tool. I had someone with me from the church so they could watch what I was doing. And over a cup of coffee after church, she turned and believed on Jesus. I linked you up with this other lady and said, I'll send you some discipleship tools so you can help to disciple her. Please make sure you do, because make sure you're discipling this lady. And I was just thrilled that I was, by the grace of God, I to lead someone to Jesus so easily and so quickly in a church environment, someone who is exploring and open. But this was the first time for a long, long while that I'd led someone to Jesus. So it changed me. And I then prayed and believed that God would use me personally to lead one person to Jesus every month. And that was my prayer from then. Lord, this is great, but I've got to practice. I've got to be share faith. And so far, we're now in November, but so far I've led 9 people to Jesus this year. Wow. And that's personally, and it's been a journey. There's some, as we've gone through, there's different people that I've led to Jesus. Some have not come through to discipleship because they've not been in my area, and it's been hard to engage with them. So I've tried to link them with local Christians and trust them to the Lord. Others who are in my area, I formed a discipleship group and personally then discipling them in their faith, which has been just an incredible journey, which has been exciting, thrilling, but also eye-opening. Just to all of a sudden be discipling brand new Christians that know nothing about church, nothing about the Bible, and you're really starting from scratch, of coming from the world into the kingdom. That was a thrilling journey, and opened my eyes to really what these guys are dealing with, coming from one kingdom to a new kingdom. It is a massive journey for some of these guys that have been caught up in so many different things of the world. So I'm part of a discipleship group, and of course, using the commands of Christ, the whole process of discipleship is to train these guys to share their faith as well as follow Jesus. The two aspects: are you following Jesus? Are you in your faith? And they have really caught hold of this.
Like for many of us, David, before you did the training and had the shift, it had been years since something like that had happened.
Absolutely. And if it did, we wouldn't know really what to do with these guys. We didn't have a discipleship program.
Come and sit and listen to my sermons. I would
absolutely come and sit and listen to my sermon. Or there's an alpha starting in 4 months' time. How about signing up for that? Those were the tools that we had, and hopefully, Steve, my preaching was not that bad. So that so we've got a lovely church to invite people to.
Yeah,
the alpha is superb, but it wasn't right. We were starting September and January, and realizing that some of these guys to walk through the doors of what is a quite large church into an environment that they're not used to is a massive step, and sometimes too big a step to start with for some of these guys. So we didn't have anything else. And so to be able to disciple new Christians in this very clear process, but very powerful process, using the 3/3 discipleship model, the commands of Christ, discovery Bible study, those tools were so releasing for us. And these guys just get it. Not only do they follow Jesus very quickly and quite deeply, they're maturing very quickly, but they're on mission. They are looking to share their faith, and they are sharing their faith. They put me to shame. They're great. And so the process has been very good for us. I can talk about another story with a young man who came to us, and I shared the gospel with him. He came to faith. We baptized him. And as you know, Steve, the first thing we do is, can I come and show you how to follow Jesus and teach you? And you ask them, who else can you bring? And he said, well, I might be able to bring my mum and my granddad along. And so I said, great, I'll come to your house next Wednesday, invite them along, and we'll start to share. So I took someone with me, and we sat down in their front room and shared the first of the commands, which is repent and believe. And he said, David, do what you did to me. Do that 3 circles thing. So he gave me the invite to do it. So I did it with both of them. And I said to Granddad, I said, where are you? He said, I'm in brokenness. Would you like to be in God's plan? Yes, he says. I did the same. Mum, where are you? She said, I'm in brokenness. Would you like to be following Jesus and in God's plan? Yes, she says. And so that evening, the first evening, both of them turned and believed on Jesus. And from one, now it's the 3 of them following Jesus, and they are just great. They're still going well, and Ben, the young guy, is just amazing. He's on fire. He's leading people to Jesus now, which is another process. Is how you bring people. First of all, Steve, he would phone me up and say, David, I've got another one. When can you come round and share the gospel? And so I'd go to his house, share the gospel with his mates, and they'd turn and believe. And then Ben, you should be doing this yourself. And I was trying to help him to say, you can do this, you can. And he was on holiday in Spain with his mates. He said, I'm going to share the gospel with my mates, David, on holiday. And it was a wedding that he was going to. And he was just sharing Jesus with all his mates. And he texted me one day, David, I'm with one of my mates and he wants to believe. I don't know what to pray. Can you text me the prayer? And so I was texting him. He was then praying with his mates and leading people to Jesus while he was on holiday. And since then, he's been leading people to Jesus regularly. So it is a process. It's a good process. And we are starting to see that next generation of people that are making disciples. It's all very small. But sometimes I'm a bit impatient, a bit slow. But there's momentum. There's definitely momentum. So that's more or less where we are at the moment. We've got plans for next year, but that's where we are at the moment, Steve.
David, how have you seen, this has obviously gripped your life and ministry, and it's overflowing to some new believers like Ben and their families. How has it overflowed into the life of the church with, the existing church you had?
Yes. So we having agreed at eldership level that this is what we were going to do, we then had the green light then to provide training. So in all of our small groups, we have offered, we've got a couple of guys that are now trained and ready to do all this. I don't have to do it. They are trained to do the 411, and they go to small groups and they train in those small groups one evening on the 411. And we've not managed to do it to all our life groups yet, but we will, over the next maybe 6 months, have trained everybody who's in one of our small groups to be able to share the gospel. So that's one way that we're trying to flow into the church tools, and with the expectation that this should be something that we all do. As part of our family of churches, we have part of our culture is that everyone is a witness. It's something that we speak about and pray about. And so it fits well into our family of churches, just that we've never had the tools to be able to be witnesses. So this is a good tool to our culture. We did spend most of 2017 and 2018 preaching every Sunday about the gospel, bringing the tools into the preaching whenever we could, whenever it's appropriate. And so people, even if they're not in a small group, would have heard about how we share the gospel, the power of the gospel. They would hear stories coming from the harvest of what's happening. They would have seen the baptisms and the testimonies that are going on. And so the impact comes through intentional training. Mm-hmm. So the life that's flowing from what we're doing just flows into the church. Our recent prayer meeting was just at a new level, because all of these new believers were at the corporate prayer meeting, and they have such life and vitality and so many stories to tell that it brings life to the whole church. And there's a lot of people commented on the fact that it was different this time because these guys were there. So it impacts. The impact is intentional through training, and preaching and teaching, and setting a process and saying, this is where we're going, guys. Yeah. But it's also caught. There's also life coming through, which is unavoidable. You can't, even if you didn't want to get involved, you can't avoid seeing what's happening because it's affecting the churches. So it's both, I think, Steve. It's an intentional path that we've set for ourselves, and it's just happening. People are seeing and wanting to know more. So I think that's the way, and it has to come from the leadership. It has to come from the leaders in the church. Otherwise, you'll get somebody who's trying to bring this through and doesn't have the authority or the opportunity sometimes to bring this teaching and these tools into the church. So it was key for us that the leaders were all on board. Even me as one of the elders, I couldn't do anything much unless the whole eldership team said, yes, we're going to do this, because I know then we've got unity. We've got a fixed direction that we're going to take through all churches. And I think that was key for us to get that done.
And I think there was even a time I remember where you intentionally slowed things down because you realized, you were moving ahead, but you needed to give your leaders a chance just to wrestle
Yes.
with this and own it for themselves rather than just you tell them what to do.
There was that time when we had some planned training. Actually, we were going to do the 411 training, and I felt a little bit on my own, Steve, if I'm honest. And it was part of the journey. I had gone on the journey myself, but the other elders hadn't, and so I was just that I had done it, and they hadn't caught up yet, and so they had to go on a similar journey. And so yes, we stopped. We pulled the plug on the training. We weren't going to do it, and we said, right, let's come back. Let's keep talking and praying. I'll keep doing what I'm doing until we get complete unity. And there's 12 of us that sits in this team, so it's a big team. And I said, until we get complete unity that this is what we believe we should be doing as a church, I don't want to go forward. So that took a little bit of time, but it's worth it. Definitely worth it, because now
you were still in the harvest. You're still bringing the stories of what God's doing.
Yeah.
You didn't give up on that, but you intentionally gave people a chance to wrestle with this and own it for themselves.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It's got to happen. And the church, I mean, we're not a traditional church of hundreds and hundreds of years, but we are still a church of 20 odd years, which has been established in a certain fashion and a certain way. So to change that culture, I think it's been at least a 3-year journey so far. First of all, personally, and then for the church. And I think it's going to take another 2 years to fully see this culture change. So I would say to anybody with, we gather about 500 on a Sunday. So anyone with a sizable church like that, then you might have a 5-year journey on your hands to see that culture change through the whole church.
But from the beginning almost, you were seeing God at work. It's not like, well, we'll have a change process of 5 years, and then maybe we'll see new disciples.
Yeah,
you were seeing it happen.
Absolutely, straight away. And what I did, Steve, was to work with those guys and carry on with that. The rest of the church. So instead of saying a normal process in the past would say to a new Christian, there's a life group over there or a small group over there, join that small group, and they'll be sucked into the culture of the church. What I've done this time is to bring the new disciples together and create a new culture in this small group, which is different maybe to our other small groups. So I've created a culture here, which is what I hope the whole church will eventually catch hold of. So I've been able to carry on to see and see this process through. But now this is something we're working through the whole church, and because I oversee other churches as well in Essex, we've been able to bring it through to other churches that are also catching hold of this. We've had 3 training sessions now in Essex, which has been well attended, and the last one we had guys from Norfolk and Kent coming into to have a look. And so it's starting to be noticed elsewhere as well. So, it's
not just you training, but you've got your team who are equipped to train.
So I've got a team of people that can do the 411 training now. Last time we did it, I assisted them. But I said, next time you don't really need me. You carry on, and I might come and watch, but you can lead this, and you don't need me. And so they're fully trained to do the 411 training, and they're great at it. They're good, and we'll bring others through to that. But Steve, the whole process is to train and release others. So the new disciples that I've been working with this year are now saying, David, you need to teach us the 3/3 discipleship model because we need to disciple others. Tonight, we've got a small group tonight. I've got the 3/3 all printed out here. We're going to go through what it means to make disciples because they want to go and just do what we've been doing, And so it's a process of training, releasing, and seeing, this this wonderful gospel being preached throughout Essex and into the nations. Definitely,
yeah. I think we were talking before we started recording that you're getting the opportunity to partner with churches in Poland and what other locations?
So we've got a couple in Malaga in Spain. Gone out to share the gospel there. I'm going to be with them in a couple of weekends, and we're talking about doing some training out there next year. We've got a little church in Portugal. I've already done some training with them. It's an English-speaking church on the Algarve, which we connected with. And we've just sent one of the new Christians out to Lisbon in Portugal. So we've got a connection into there. We want to train her to make disciples and to gather people together there. And so, yeah, we've got some links into different churches, and also through the family of churches that we belong to. We've got churches in mainland Europe, in Netherlands, France, Germany, and places like that. So there could be opportunities to train and to release this into Europe, as well as into the UK. Wherever I've got connections, Steve, I'm trying to encourage them to share the faith and to see the gospel spread.
Well, you've got a history in planting new churches. How is this whole shift going to affect how you plant churches in the future?
Yeah, I think for the UK, we're coming to a new season. The church in the UK has been really blessed by immigration. And I mean, in our area, in our borough of Thurrock, every single church has grown. Whatever the denomination, whatever type it is, every church grew because of people coming into the area from Africa, Eastern Europe, and places like that. They came to Thurrock and they joined the local church. And so we've been blessed to see church growth over the last 5 years, maybe longer, maybe 10 years. But immigration, because of what's happening here in the UK with Brexit, immigration has slowed down, if not stopped a little bit. And so the churches all of a sudden are not seeing that growth. And so there is a need to see a new emphasis on how we reach into our communities, not just by expecting people to come to us, but getting out and going to share the gospel with our friends, our families, our communities. It could be door to door, it could be in the marketplace, in the shopping centres, but it could be in the workplace, it could be with our families, whatever. And so when we come to do the next church plant, it will be based upon these principles. It will be based upon how do we connect with the community that we're trying to reach. And we will do it with a team going out. There'll be a team of people going door to door. There will be a team of people in the high street where the shops are and connecting with people. And there will be an emphasis on everybody sharing their faith with their friends, with their family, with their work colleagues. And that will be the basis now for us to plant the new church. It will be on this everyone a witness, gospel presentation culture, that we will see new disciples come to faith in this area. And that's how we will gather the church, not reliant on other Christians coming in to join us and to plant a church that way. And so it has changed the way that we do things. The last church we planted was in a little town called South Ockenden, and that was an in-between. There was a whole group of people that we sent out, but they have this culture of wanting to witness into the community as well. And so they've already got a team on the streets. They're already seeing fruitfulness there. But the next one that we do will be even more based on this new culture of witnessing, of being out into the community, sharing our faith day to day. And so it will change the way that we plant churches, definitely.